I've been playing outdoors since I was a kid, standing by the front door at around 2 years old, hollering, side, 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 trying to get my mom to let me go play outside. Now, after 30 plus years working in the outdoor business, I'm dropping insider conversations every week with the brand leaders, guides, marketers, CEOs, and others to make the outdoor industry a trillion-dollar juggernaut that drives product innovation, revenue, and public policy for everything outdoors. I'm Rick Saez. Welcome to the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Hello again, everyone. Welcome to episode 449 of the Outdoor Biz Podcast, brought to you this week by Thrive Market. Lauren Hefferon has been a devoted cyclist for over 40 years, long before it became popular, accessible, or fashionable. While in high school in southern New Hampshire, Lauren discovered her passion for pedaling after a serious ski injury prevented her from downhill ski racing and playing many team sports. Upon graduation with a degree in graphic design at Mass Art, Lauren decided to follow her entrepreneurial cravings and launched Ciclismo Classico. Their mission is to inspire active travelers to embrace cycling as a soulful form of travel that connects us with the world and through the passionate, curious, and creative human spirit. Hey, Lauren, welcome to the show.
Hi there, Rick. How you doing?
Good. Good to be talking with you this morning. So we were talking, we were spitballing before. You just got back from Portugal. That must have been great trip.
I did. Yeah, it was great. A lot of sun. My arms are a little fried. My skin's a little, got a little more fried than it needed to. But yeah, it was great. Great group. Lovely trip. The guides are super. I just love going on our tours. It's a big source of pride for me because we really do such a great job. And I was very proud of the guides and many of the guests I'd been known for years. So it was really nice for me to finally be on trips with them. So yeah, it was great.
I bet you get a lot of repeat guests, don't you? Because you've been doing this for so long.
We do, yeah. I think it's probably 60 or 70%. I think this trip it was probably like 70, and then we had like 5 new people, and they all blended in just fine. And I think it really creates a nice dynamic because you have majority of the people very comfortable with the way we roll, and then the new people kind of go along with it. So it really works really well to kind of create a great trip.
Very cool. Well, let's start off with something light. Tell us about your very first bike. What was that?
Okay, well, sure. I had my very first one when I was real little was a tricycle, a red tricycle, and I still have the red tricycle. And then my next one, I don't remember exactly when, might have been when I could ride a 2-wheeler. So maybe it was like, the old days, it was usually a little bit later, but I had a purple Schwinn little chick. And unfortunately, I sold it. I was also into selling my toys. Entrepreneurism began young for me. And unfortunately, I sold it. But I remember that, it was sort of a classic little girl's bike. But then I put curlicue handlebars on it. I think by the 3rd grade, I added a big sissy bike, a sissy bar.
Sissy bar, yeah.
Sissy bar, yeah. So I really, I really kind of made it, kind of, what do you call it, just improved it. But yeah, so yeah, I always loved cycling. My mom, was always saying how much I always loved to ride a bike.
That's interesting. My parents were way into cycling. They cycled, I think it was from San Francisco to San Diego was their big trip.
Wow.
And I did it through triathlons. I never got into the touring side of it, but yeah, it's a great activity. Yeah.
My mom couldn't ride a 2-wheeler. She
really?
Never, well, she grew up in the 50s, never had a bicycle. And, and the women of the 50s, the 30s and 40s and 50s, I mean, she just was of that generation of that immigrant background that, didn't have the opportunities, but that was so great that she, as few opportunities that she had, she just loved that I love riding a bike. It was always very apparent. My parents were very supportive and very, behind me. My dad, on the other hand, was quite an athlete. So he bought me my first, then my next bike was a bright green Schwinn Traveler. So I almost can say I can probably remember all the different frames I had, but I was always on a bicycle as far as I can remember.
I remember my first 10-speed was a yellow Schwinn.
That was that generation, right? They had yellow, bright green, blue, and red, I think. And then I remember the Schwinn catalog. It was, there wasn't much available, so not even in terms of clothing, mostly wool and, one color wool and one color jersey. And the choices now are completely out of control.
I can imagine. So bicycling has always been a major passion in your life then?
Yeah, and it really has. I think, I think it's driven by my curiosity. I think there's 2 things that drove bicycling. One, I've been athletic and I love the outdoors. So, I played real hard as a kid outside. And I think that I just enjoy, I also have no siblings, so I had no problem being by myself. And I think I'm comfortable being on my bike. I never felt alone. I always would just go for hours and hours and hours, even as a little kid. So yeah, it's always been a passion. And I, love maps. So it kind of combination of things. And I grew up primarily in Keene, New Hampshire. And you also have to thank that area because it was so beautiful. And I was always curious. I always wanted to know what was beyond the next town. What was that? What did that village look like? What did that lake look like? And, the bicycle was the best way to get there. And I never drove in high school and I didn't drive in college. So yes, I saw myself as a cyclist at probably 13 or 14. I really started kind of identifying with all of everything about bicycling that people have always identified with. Its sense of freedom, its sense of exploration, its simplicity, the access you can get to see an area. So wherever I've lived, it has always helped me enjoy a place better. And when I, lived up in New Hampshire, I knew all the villages more than most people in the town. And then I went to Cornell and I knew the Finger Lakes better than most. And then in Italy, I really started learning about, all my environment. So for me, it's always been, I always say it's sort of my steel horse. It's always been my way of exploration. It's been my main mode of exploration. Walking is too slow. And, cycling has just the right amount of exhilaration and effort. And it has all the right things. Cool. Yeah. So I have to say it's really been a whole life that I've been very passionate about cycling and it hasn't faded whatsoever.
Good for you. What made you study anthropology at Cornell? What was that? What inspired that?
I think it's sort of still the driving part of my personality, which is curiosity. I started out in fine arts because I've always been involved with the arts and painted a lot as a kid. But then I got to Cornell and I said, it felt a little bit too focused. And I think that's the Renaissance person in me that I love to learn, I like to learn about a lot of things. And anthropology is such a great template to appreciate the world. It's very much about, like almost the template of anthropology is everything has a cultural drive to it, so there's no right or wrong. Anthropology is all about just appreciating cultures for what they are and who the people are. So
and you go into the weeds as deep as you want, right?
Yeah. And I didn't want to be I knew right away I didn't want to be an anthropology professor or go into it
right.
master's level. But in terms of like its template of curiosity, I really enjoyed. It was no question. My first anthropology class, probably as a kid, I was, when National Geographic came in the mail, I ate it all up. I'd sit there for an hour or two just reading it from cover to cover. So I think that cultures have always appealed to me. And the travel bug started again with the National Geographic. And so I think anthropology also just has travel written all over it. I mean, you can't really study anthropology without wanting to travel. So I actually studied cultural anthropology with a specialty in Peru. And I went to Peru in college. And, I was bitten by the travel bug pretty early. I went to Spain in high school. So, pretty early on, I just knew the world was really an oyster, my oyster. I was going to start exploring. Exploration was definitely in my veins.
Mm-hmm. And while you're at Cornell, you were riding around the Finger Lakes teaching bicycle instruction to wide-eyed freshmen. Your bio says, what types of skills were you teaching them? Everything from how to ride safely to mechanical?
Exactly. So at Cornell, they had this great program called, at the time it was called Wilderness Reflections. And now it's called Cornell Outdoor Education. It's one of the largest outdoor education programs in the country. So, when I got to Cornell again, I just said, okay, where am I going on my bike? And in fact, when I rolled into Cornell with my dad visiting colleges, I'm like, Dad, this is going to be great. The biking here is going to be great. And then literally within a week, I met a whole other group of cyclists who were doing the same thing. And I said, let me in on this. So I applied to be an instructor, and we would basically use a tour around the Finger Lakes to orientate freshmen to have them meet a few of their fellow class. And we would teach them how to pack, how to pack front and back on the panniers, a lot of packing, probably some mechanics. And then basically after they finished this tour, we then did a classroom activity. So this was their gym option. They could do,
cool.
They could do swimming or they could do, bicycle instruction. And so I took bicycle touring as an elective in terms of gym. And it was great. I realized at that point, I think that was my first real teaching experience. And I realized that, one thing I might have been or maybe it will be another life is a teacher. I love sharing what I love. So, and through that experience as an instructor at Cornell Outdoor Ed, I really learned that I love teaching people. I love sharing what I love. I love seeing the sparkle in their eyes and the excitement. I also was okay with all of their issues and their problems and their psychologies and, all that. I mean, I like the whole experience as a leader. I I was ready for that kind of leadership experience, and it was great.
Yeah, having been a river guide, I know what all that other stuff is too, right? I mean, it's
Oh yeah.
amazing when you have to get someone to pack into a, whether it's a, a dry bag for a river trip or panniers for a bicycle trip, and all the things that you have to force them to leave out. No, we don't have room for that. You're not going to need it. It's an art in and of itself.
Exactly. And I always, I'm sort of beginner focused in general. I love the beginner mind. I like people that are beginners things. I don't need to teach advanced cycling or anything advanced. I just love when people are new to a sport, and I want to be the one that inspires them and doesn't, and there's no intimidation, right? So, I mean, for me, it's never about intimidation. It's always inclusivity. And so
Right.
as a tour guide, that was always my philosophy. And in my company, that's our philosophy too, that, you don't have, we love cycling for what it is, and the performance aspect, comes, but it's secondary to what we're trying to do, which is to teach people about where they, where they are and who they're connecting with through a bicycle.
That's very cool. So what inspired you to start Ciclismo Classico?
Sure. I went, as I mentioned, after graduating from Cornell, I'd already had this teaching experience. Then I went to Italy and I did a tour. I did a tour around Europe for 3 months on my bicycle. And I came back to Florence, and I started to apply to as a local tour guide. I started just seeing what kind of jobs I could get in the tour business. I worked for a couple of bike touring companies in that couple of years when I was living in Italy. I was designing itineraries for a tour. I designed an itinerary for a tour company. So I was just beginning to do more of what I love, which is designing itineraries, exploring on my bike, imagining bringing other people there, the whole social aspect. And then I came back to Boston, and I did other jobs. I did, kind of a couple other different jobs, but then I went to art, then I tried to go to, then I went to art school, and I was doing illustration, and I thought, I'm going to become an illustrator, but that was too boring again. I said, but then I came back for my senior thesis, and I needed to do a senior thesis, and I'm like, I am thinking about starting this company. Let me do my senior thesis in actually a brand. I created a brand. So the brand was Classico. Yeah. And I did the illustrations with the catalog, and I created the language. And so I kind of, in my senior year at Mass Art, I created the brand. And then, then I just, one thing led to another. I led a bicycle tour for another company who's no longer in business anymore. And it was a big group. It was about 20 people on the tour.
Oh, wow.
And I just loved it. And I was really passionate. I was high energy, high passion. I got nothing but kudos from the participants. And one of the guys who became a client and the godfather of my son, Frank Gargano, he just said, Hefferon, you should start your own company. And I'm okay. And then, I basically was not even, starting the company was not even, and it was just so, for me, it just became so second nature. My parents were really supportive. My mom, I led a couple of trips in Florence. I designed these really nice itineraries in Tuscany. We always had cooking lessons way back then. So I created
cool.
My goal was to create very educational tours. I mean, what I wanted to do was, because I had been a tour guide, and the experience that I had, with these couple of the companies, like I said, are no longer in business anymore. They were very luxury orientated. And I kept saying, well, gee whiz, there's so much to teach people. So right away, okay, an itinerary is a story. So an itinerary is a story. And on this story, there's things to teach, So the very first itinerary was Pisa to Florence. And, we stopped in Lucca and San Miniato. And, I really made the itinerary full of educational experiences. And that became the template, so I started in 1989. I got an SBA loan of $5,000, which got me excited, and really just started, very, very basic. I mean, nothing like today, which is available to young entrepreneurs in the tour business. I mean, it was all paper maps and, old vans and, kind of I put it together.
Computers. Yeah. Right.
I put together a fleet of bicycles that was just kind of a mixed match. I mean, nothing I did then would ever be appropriate right now. But I had a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun, and every, I started hiring more staff, and little by little, I just grew the company. So, I was hugely excited. I mean, I love designing the brochure every year. So every part of the business I wasn't afraid of. I liked, right? I liked
Yeah,
the
you
operation.
enjoyed it. Yeah, that's huge.
I sort of like I was the CEO, the COO, and
Yeah.
so I could do the sales. I did my own road show. I came out to California and I did slide presentations, and
Wow.
so I had no problem with the sales aspect. My very first database was essentially a big poster in my little tiny office. And I had 100 people I had spoken to, and
Wow.
my goal was to cross them all off and try to get them on trips. And that was
That's
the
cool.
extent of my database, which literally my big poster. And I lived with 5 other roommates, and I drove them crazy because the phone started ringing like crazy. And I would answer in the middle of the night, Ciclismo Classico, buongiorno.
Oh,
And
geez.
so it was a really classic, small business startup.
Literally
And
bootstrap from the ground up, from
exactly.
the
And then
first pencil.
exactly. And I went to Italy. My mother would answer the phone and she kind of freaked out about that. And I'd coach her on don't worry, mom, it's okay. You got this.
Yeah, right.
Like, I don't know what to, and then my dad was doing the books. And so, we had this little family business going, and I couldn't be happier. I mean, really weren't at the time, 1989. I mean, there was only a couple of companies that were going to Italy. And I really saw myself as, I said, well, I guess if there's nobody really specializing in Italy, that's going to be my niche. There are other
Opportunity.
people
Yeah.
doing it, but I said, we're going to go, full on Italy, go take a deep dive. And so really, for the first, first 13 years of the company, 14 years of
Wow.
the company, my goal was to have trips in every region of Italy. So, year 1, we had Tuscany. Year 2 and 3, we started expanding to Umbria. Year 4, we are in Piedmont and Sardinia and Puglia. So every year I just expanded, the regional, trips that we did. So
That's incredible.
for many of the trips, we were the first company to actually do tours, in those regions. And
So,
that
so
became
as the first, there's always challenges being the first, right? You either get arrows in the backside or, it becomes easier. But what were a couple of the biggest challenges being first?
I think, being the first was honestly not the challenge. The challenge was, for example, bicycles, right? there was nobody renting bicycles. So
right.
bicycles were a big challenge because the consistency of the quality wasn't very good. So, the first couple of years, I literally worked with a teeny tiny bike shop in Lucca, and he put together what is now considered a vintage bike fleet, and, none of the parts are the same. So I'd say the operational piece is a challenge, right? So at the hotel accommodations, making sure, all of those things that had never been done before. I had no software to do it. I, literally.
Yeah, it's on paper, right?
Yeah, I have boxes in my basement still of people's files. And, I don't really, honestly, I was so excited and I had great people. I think that I really didn't feel, believe it or not, I didn't feel that anything was challenging about it.
Well, I think when you're following your passion, when you're doing something that you completely love and are immersed in, there are less challenges because you're excited about everything, right?
Yeah, I guess if someone didn't have a great time and it happened to be anything that was my fault, for example, I had, I think. And still to this day, although a little bit less, I'm so, as a tour guide, and you can relate to this, when you care so much, at least I did, but I know a lot of tour guides feel this way. You care so much about these people that if something goes wrong, after the trip, it kind of lingers with you for a while, right?
Yeah,
So but see, that was a hard reality. The bicycles and dealing with, necessarily trying to get the quality that we wanted. I think achieving at that time the quality that we have now, for example, the bicycles, the hotel.
Oh, sure. Totally different.
I mean, hotels didn't serve breakfast. Italy, Americans wanted breakfast. And so we'd have to bring in, boxes of cereal. So I think trying to take Italy, which was, 30 years ago, didn't at all have the amenities that it has now, but yet having guests who had high, who had high, demand, who had demands, luxury. Luxury demands for hotels, which, well, guess what? If we're going to go to this little tiny village and, in Tuscany, there's nothing but a 3-star hotel. So it was kind of matching the amenities, which were not up to the par they are now, to, semi-demanding, but what I'm saying is like they're used to the luxury.
No, a discerning customer. They weren't demanding, but they had certain things they were used to, right? So they were more specialty than the mainstream customer, is what I like to say, right? Yeah, interesting.
I guess the challenges of any business. You hire someone to work out. Every challenge that existed then, still exists now, honestly. You have challenges with the bicycles, you have challenges with accommodations, you have challenges with the operations, you have challenges. I mean, the back end of any adventure travel company, as you know,
Yeah,
it's all,
exactly.
we're data companies. Like the front end is all acting and all is
data
smart.
and logistics, right? It's all the logistics of getting everything together in one place so they can
The
start.
back end is also, I'm very grateful over the years and still am of the back end being doing something that right now do not have the interest in doing. I know the importance, but the operations, like the data, we're data companies. We're driven by the data of our customers. We're driven by the data of our logistics. We're driven by the data. So it's all data, and so I think I'd say the challenges now are probably greater than they were when I started.
Yeah, in different ways. Yeah, I agree. Yeah. What sets you guys apart from other bicycle tour operators in the market? Because I think there's a lot of people doing it now, right?
Yeah, from the very, very beginning, and still I just get back in Portugal and I just wrote a 3-page, evaluation of the trip.
Right.
It's still for us that a bicycle tour is a way to learn about a place, right? So it starts with a fundamental belief that yes, you get exercise. Yes, the fresh air is wonderful. Yes, it's a wonderful way to travel. But, I really believe that from the morning, from the moment you get on your bicycle in the morning till the day is done, all throughout the day, there's opportunities for learning. So for example, Portugal, there's some wonderful pastries. Okay, sure, you can just eat them, but you could also learn about how they're made and what's different from them.
Yeah.
So at Ciclismo Classico, our guides, live this mantra about caring about the guests, caring about their curiosity, and making sure that it's just not head down, bike away, right? It's all about.
You're not there to cover miles. You're there to immerse yourself in the culture.
Exactly. It's immersion. It's all about immersion. So it's that anthropological template. We on our trips, for example, we have language lessons, and there's a couple of nights where we literally will sit down by the pool and teach people how to, count in Portuguese or, say buongiorno in Italian,
cool.
Or different, how to choose a gelato. And, when we'll sit by the pool and we'll bring out some gelato and we'll say, what's your favorite gelato in Italian and so forth. So,
oh, cool.
All throughout, we have, we really, I feel that we were the pioneers of cooking lessons and walking tours and, really always bringing that educational immersion, I would say. And also our guides, people would say what the big, people love our guides. And that's not only because people always love guides, but ours are very well tenured. I mean, the average tenure of our guides is 10 to 15 years.
Wow.
At our guide meetings, like I said, if I say the number one thing I want the guides to do is to care about everybody. So like we're the care. I always say, hey, we're the caring company. Don't forget that. We care about each and every person. We're not going to make them feel if they're, if they have too many questions, we're not going to make them feel like they have too many questions. If they want to do extra loops, we're going to try to figure out a way to have them do extra loops. If they want to hop in the van, no problem. So it's really about the guests having, an immersive experience. Sounds
like it's white glove service you're providing there.
Yeah, white glove and again, educational, like our guides
That's the thing. Yeah, everything. Yeah. Right.
I mean, if we're standing around and, fixing a flat, another guide might start just talking about the local landscape because people are standing there. So almost every kind of opportunity, there's learning opportunities throughout the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I just don't think that it's all about, seeing the whole day as a story. What is this? What is today? What's today's story, right? What's the story of the trip that we're trying to get across? That's kind of how we approach things.
Yeah. Which destinations are most popular?
As I mentioned, Portugal is very popular this year. I mean, Italy is always popular. I would say
any particular place in Italy, or is it just all of Italy, just wherever?
The Tuscany is always popular. It's where the company started. Puglia is a great destination. That's very popular. Sicily was real popular this year. The Dolomites as well. Yeah, I mean, all of the trips. I mean, in fact, some of the trips are less well known. We're trying to figure out ways to have them more well known. Abruzzo is a beautiful place. One of the few companies that goes there. So, we try. As people come on tours, they'll take 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 tours, and we start them on maybe in central Italy. That is more a way to understand the history of Italy, and then we move them off to different more obscure locations like Sardinia, or maybe, Croatia, I mean, the border of Italy.
Right.
So yeah, we kind of see a trip as a succession, right? There's sort of like Ciclismo 101, which would be bike across Italy and Tuscany,
Gotcha.
and Ciclismo 102, which would be Sardinia or maybe Corsica. So yeah, it's sort of like a progression. So I'll always make sure when people, it's their first time with us, that they do one of our core trips.
Mm-hmm. That's smart. That's a good way to run those, because that way you almost, kind of entice people to come back for more.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And also from in terms of a bicycle, if people haven't done a bicycle tour before,
right.
I mean, I will put them on trips in which I know that there's from like everything is going to be, kind of unique and kind of introductory to this kind of touring, right? Mm-hmm. So I've never, in general, I've never heard of anybody going on a bike tour, whether it's ours or anybody else's, and not do it again. So
it's like a river trip. They never go on one.
Yeah, they always go on another. It's very important that people have a positive experience about it. And also it's very safe. I'd say that what sets us apart as well is I think we have a pretty stellar safety record. I mean, people have, we have people that take little spills and so forth, but I mean, we're really very on top of it in terms of making sure that people have a very safe experience. We do bicycling clinics. We start out with a very thorough safety clinic, then we do a gear clinic, then we do a downhill clinic. We do clinics all along the way with people so they know how to go downhill, because the downhills in Italy are twisting and turning, and we want to make sure that people know how to do it. They can get very overwhelmed by the terrain. I remember I was, when I went to Italy,
the speed you gather.
Well, I was used to roads going straight, right? Whereas in Italy, they twist and they turn, and I didn't know how to go down those hills very well, but I did learn, and I took that experience, my own experience, and trying to teach people on feeling confident on a bicycle.
Is there a memorable experience from one of your tours that stands out?
Yeah, there are so many. I do have to say that one, that those first couple of trips, when cycling the bicycle tours weren't popular and people were really out there. Just as we were pioneers, I think the guests themselves were pioneers, and my ability to kind of make them feel comfortable, even though like nowadays they'd have no business on a bike trip, right? And particularly, I really love working with women in particular, like women that are kind of really not comfortable on a bicycle. I always get a charge out of, I can see them. I can see that they're intimidated on the trip, and then even on this Portugal trip, there's this one woman I could tell right away that she was going to be using an e-bike, and I could tell just the way that she was interacting with the group for the first day that she was almost saying with her body language, "Hey, I am not into this biking stuff. I'm only here because my husband's here." And I knew that, what I wanted to do was make her throughout the 10 days is, allow her to feel more comfortable. And she did. She used an e-bike, and she was rocking it on the e-bike. So I have to say, any opportunity that I have to make people feel comfortable on a bicycle and safe on a bicycle, it's always the most memorable. And sometimes I guess the most cultural fun when we were in the Dolomites one time, and on all of our trips, we try to create a magical moment. That's sort of one of the things that we tell our guides, try to create at least one magical moment. And in particular, in the Dolomites, I had met on my scouting a group of gentlemen who were singing at a local restaurant. And I discovered that they were part of the Cortina Choir, which is an enormous choir of men who sing beautiful, in their native vernacular, and they sing in the Cortina Choir. So I said, hey, can you guys come and bring a bunch of your other guys to the restaurant on the last night? But we're going to keep it a secret. So here we are having dinner. And then the Cortina half of the Cortina Choir comes walking in, and we herd them to the kitchen. We get them started drinking some grappa, and then all of a sudden, I just say, "Okay, gentlemen," I said, "Okay, people," and then they just walked in, and just started singing, and everybody had tears in their eyes. It was just like it was one of those moments that we try to create on a lot of our trips.
That's awesome. We had the same experience in Georgia. We did a trek in Georgia in the Caucasus Mountains. And we were at this little out of the way place, middle of nowhere, and all of a sudden we're sitting down for dinner, and these guys start walking in, and they start playing these, instruments, and the guy walks in and starts singing. It was just unbelievable. That's cool.
It's so great. I mean, it's just so important that people have that. They that they have those kind of experiences that, that they realize travel can be magical, and, they take them home with them. And I always
the lifetime memories. Exactly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think organic groceries are too expensive? So does Thrive Market. They guarantee savings on healthy groceries and home essentials delivered. How? It's easy. They work directly with the best organic brands, so you get the highest quality products without the big retail markups. Shop everything from pantry essentials to sustainable meat and food to non-toxic cleaning supplies. And get 30% off your first order and a free gift when you join Thrive Market. Go to ricksaez.com/Thrive Market and get your membership today. That's ricksaez.com/Thrive Market. Now back to the show. So how does Ciclismo Classico incorporate sustainability and eco-friendly practices into your tours?
Well, bicycling in general, I feel like we're doing pretty eco-friendly
Right.
work. I really, and this, we actually limit the number of e-bikes on our trips. I mean, we don't, e-bikes, I think they're great, but I think they have some eco issues I think with the batteries.
Mm-hmm. I was going to ask you how many people on a trip use an e-bike.
Well, we limited 25% of the group. I'm not saying we're religious and orthodox about that
Sure.
Percentage, but we do really limit them because, I feel that people pedaling with their own power, has real value.
It's a way different experience, right?
Yeah. And like in this example of the woman who took an e-bike with her husband. Now that was an example of, I feel like we introduced them to an eco-friendly way to travel. Like if they,
Yep.
he and her husband, her husband loves to ride. He was going on trips by himself. She has an e-bike. So they normally would do driving tours. So now they're going to do bike trips. I mean, so I think the idea that on our trips, we don't do shuttles. I mean, you literally start on day 1 and on day 10, you've biked the whole way. I mean, the only exception is if there's any stretches of road that are either super uninteresting or have more traffic. But for the most part, I say 90% of our trips, we start at point A and we end at point B, and it's all human power.
That's cool.
And like I said, we don't use single use plastics. We try to, whenever we can, just obviously have recyclable things on the tour. But we recycle all of our water bottles, our bicycles too. We've given them away. We've given them away to various schools and so forth. So I think in general, bicycle touring is pretty eco.
It is. Yeah.
We have one van. We don't have two vans. We try to just limit the fossil fuels that we use. And as much as, it's sort of a practice, like it's something that we do it by a matter of practice.
That's good. Yeah. Good for you. So what are your future plans? Any new destinations coming up?
Definitely gravel. Gravel is going to be definitely high in our list.
Really? Is it by demand or by choice?
By demand. And also I think people are they're really embracing, they are getting more concerned about riding the roads. Italy is very safe compared to, I'd say, most places in the United States.
I'll bet, yeah.
Because they have more tertiary roads, they have more back roads. But the people just love being on gravel, and there's so many. Gravel is really popular in Tuscany. The Italians just love the gravel riding because there's so many roads. There's so many gravel roads. So that's for sure. We're going to have a trip in Tuscany and Piedmont and Sicily, all gravel trips. So that's, I'd say, the biggest new thing we're going to do. And I think in general, we're just going to, after the pandemic, I decided I didn't really want to expand. I was happy just taking the trips that we already do, maybe adding a couple new ones a year, but for the most part, improving what we do and making sure that everybody has, a 9 or 10 experience, which has pretty much been the case all this year and all last year.
I love that. I think the pandemic did that to a lot of people. I think before the pandemic, everybody was all into the growth. The growth thing was driving everything, right? We got to do this. We got to do this. More. And then the pandemic caused everybody to back off, slow down, realize more is not always better.
Exactly.
So, that's great.
And exactly. I totally feel that, small is beautiful. I'm going back to one of my favorite books in high school, which was Small is Beautiful. And I just feel like, we do a better service to people if our trips are high quality. And, I almost think about it like in terms of going to, a school, going to university or something where, university, a small school, a small independent college isn't interested in expanding necessarily, but they're always making every course better and better and better. And the professors are there for a long, long time. So the analogy for me is that our guides are happy and remain a long time, that they're always, we give our guides a bit of freedom in terms of not, demanding that they go cookie cutter with the tours. So each guide leads the tour in a little bit of a different way.
Oh, cool. This next question, I feel like I don't need to ask it because the passion you have for your business just oozes out of what you're answering. So, Any other things you can say about how you integrate the passion? It just seems like it's just automatically comes out from you into the business and the customers.
Thank you. Yeah. I think, years ago we did sort of a team evaluation and everybody, they said, what's the kind of defining quality of Ciclismo? And it was the passion of everybody. I mean, mine, is similar. If you were to come to one of our guide meetings, you'd see the passion. All the guides feel this way, that, the people here in the office, I mean, they get really very passionate about it.
That's great.
I think integrating it for me means that you integrate it from the very first, buongiorno,
right.
It's really the minute I can get someone
first contact, right?
Yeah, which is why I really love to I prefer to talk to people on the phone, because I just want to hear their voice. I want to ask them, I really want to understand, so it starts from that very first phone call, and then as much as possible, whenever they talk to us, to make their pre-trip experience, very personal, very much, what do they want to learn on a bicycle trip? How do they want to experience the culture or not? And what if maybe they just want to ride their bicycles? That's okay too.
Right.
But then on the trips, I mean, really, it's our guide training. It's the way, it's by design, right? By design, our trips, are going to be the best that a region can give. So it's all about, once we do, bike across Portugal, we've only done it a couple of times, and so we're going to go straight in with all of our passion, all of our guides' passion, and say, how can we make this trip even better? So. Yeah, I mean, I think it's just a process. Every year we change our jerseys because we love bike jerseys, and we love,
cool.
we love to get it. We like people to be passionate about cycling. So the only way to really do that is through your own. It's like kind of by example.
Do you have one person wear the yellow jersey? Who's that?
Oh, well, we don't do that, but I mean,
Okay.
every evening we have a little very campy award to somebody who has had a particularly interesting or challenging day. And
cool.
We pass the hat every night, and we have a little bit of campy stuff at Ciclismo. It's a little, can be a little campy, but I think, I really believe
you got to do that. You got to do that.
I believe that people on a bicycle are young at heart. I believe that if you do your job well, people on the tour, more and more will look like they did in high school or I mean, they really, that bicycling should bring out that kind of yippee yahoo kind of
brings out the kid in you, right? Yeah, because we all go back to our first day on a tricycle.
Exactly. When I go down a hill with somebody, I mean, it's all about big smile on my face, and even when I'm riding in the Boston area, on the bike path, I try to bring the joy out from my inside to the outside, so I can show other people that cycling is a joyful activity.
That's great. So do you have any advice for someone who's looking to start their own outdoor adventure tourism business?
Yeah, I'd say, as I mentioned, I think, I started out small, and then I got too seduced by a lot of the bells and whistles in the adventure travel business. I'd say, I think technology is great. I think that it's being leaned upon, way too much. I think that if someone were going to be in adventure travel, they should could just really keep the customer and the passion in mind. I think that, again, what I'm seeing a lot is, I belong to a couple of Facebook groups with adventure travel, and I could see that people want technology to solve all their problems. And honestly, it never solves all of our problems.
Not going to happen. Right. Not going to happen. Yep.
So I think just keeping it personal, keeping not if, the growth should be there, but don't focus on the growth, focus on, just creating and providing exceptional experiences. That's the best marketing you could really ever do.
Yeah. If you deliver on that, the growth is going to happen because people are going to gravitate. They're going to hear about it. They're going to gravitate to it because you're the best or you're one of the best.
Exactly.
So,
exactly. That's what you should be doing, is just finding your niche, finding what you love the most, and really making sure that everybody has an exceptional experience. Again, the same old rules apply. I mean, trying to get to, people that are working for you that share your philosophy, your ethics, your morals, or whatever. I mean, I think that's important too, is just try to build a team that shares the way that you feel.
Yep. 100%. So here's the fun questions. Sometimes the hardest questions I ask. What's your favorite piece of cycling gear under $100?
I saw this question and I'm like, first of all, I have everything that I need. So I mean, I've been biking for so long, but I mean, I always love a good pair of gloves. But by the way, I just and I go through them enough. So
yeah, that's a good one.
I love a good pair of gloves. Cycling socks are fun. I mean, it's hard to get, a good pump, a good small pump is great.
Can you get a good small pump for under $100 these days?
Well, yeah, a little, yeah. There are definitely pumps available. There's not a lot it's not a lot under $100. I mean, most
Yeah,
likely,
yeah.
like
That's why
clothing
I
is
asked. That's why I put that mark on it. Makes it harder.
yeah, I think just those little things that, you go through a lot. I mean,
Yeah,
arm warmers. Like I said, I have most of what I need.
yeah,
So,
yeah. I like
um,
the socks though, because you're right. The socks can be fun and it can change them every day, and they can be a
exactly,
conversation piece.
exactly,
She gets wild
exactly. So,
socks.
anytime I go to a bike shop, I usually buy a pair of socks, and I'll probably
Yeah.
buy a pair of gloves. And I like a good bicycling book. I do like I have a great collection of bike books. So
Uh-huh, uh-huh.
I do like to buy bike books still. I have a pretty good library.
So nice segue. What's your favorite book?
Well, I just got a little book about bike quotes. I'm not sure they're favorites. I do have a lot of books.
Hmm.
I have a particular book. Being from Southern New Hampshire, I have this beautiful book about the Monadnock region that I just love looking at the photographs.
Mm-hmm.
And honestly, I love reading poetry. I'm not much of a novel reader, but
Okay.
I love reading. Mary Oliver is one of my favorites. I love her. I love her view of nature. I go back to that quite often just because nature has always been for me such a fundamental teacher. So I love reading her poems, and I think that it just keeps my eyes, wide open when I'm on my
Mm-hmm.
bicycle and being grateful. So that's why I love poetry. It just reminds me about her poetry is just the gratitude in the small things. I have a lot. I'm a very eclectic kind of reader. I read a lot of
Mm-hmm.
magazines too. I love National Geographic, like I said. So
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I read a lot of different things.
Gotcha. Yeah. As we wrap up here, is there anything else you'd like to say or ask of our listeners?
Well, I really appreciate. I love talking about bicycle travel. Obviously, I also think I was thinking about this. I have a lot of different ways about thinking about bicycling. I was thinking if people are still struggling on wondering if a bike trip is for them. Oh boy, stuff throat. But
I can edit
boy,
that out. I can clean it up. Take a glass of water if you need
sorry,
it.
sorry about that. But I think, people that go skiing maybe can relate to this analogy. When you go skiing, you start out at 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or maybe even earlier, and you ski all day, right? You're out until 4, and
Hmm.
you're not in a hurry to
Hmm.
take your runs, although you might be. But for the most part, people hop in the lift and they just want a really nice day with their friends.
Hmm.
So I think, people get nervous and they get intimidated by cycling. As I said throughout this whole interview, I think if you think about cycling as going on a ski vacation and every day you're just going to go out there and just enjoy your friends, just enjoy the snow, just enjoy, and you're not about how many runs did I do and how fast did I do a run.
Hmm.
Cycling is just not about that. And my big wish for bicycling in general is that people see cycling as simply a way to travel, and that
Yeah.
it lasts all day long and it's at your own pace, and that all of the drive to make cycling faster and slicker and sexier and everything like that, it's not necessary. You can enjoy bicycling however you choose to do it. So that's always just my wish and my dream for cycling, is and I can see there's definitely a tipping point. Cycling has more and more people are biking, more and more people are trying it. Young people are really embracing it. I mean, in the Boston area, it's incredible the number of young people that don't have cars that are
Oh, yeah, that's true.
so I'd say give it a try. Give biking a try in your next commute. Next time you go, I just got back from, like I said, I just got back from Portugal, and if you go to a city, if you're traveling, like in Lisbon, I just looked up the
Yeah, hop on a
bicycle.
bike for a day. That's a great idea.
Yeah, like basically hire someone to take you around on a bicycle, and
Hmm.
don't worry about what you're wearing. Just put on some sneakers and enjoy in the way you could explore a city. Like I saw, in 3 or 4 hours, I went from one side of Lisbon to the other and saw stuff that I'm sure that other people didn't see.
Well,
So,
you saw more than anybody would have seen in a car. You don't would have seen in a
oh
car. I
yeah, or
mean,
even on
yeah,
foot, right? I mean, like
yeah,
you can.
right, right.
What happens is I did my first day. I walked around Lisbon, and I only made it probably a mile or two. It was a mile in circumference at the most, right? But on a
Hmm.
bicycle, I went from like literally one side of that city to the other. I've
Yeah.
done that in Barcelona. I've done that in Copenhagen. I've done that in Paris. I've done that in Florence. I'd say if you're traveling this summer and one of your stopovers is a city, try a bike tour. And they're really like the one I did was the junkiest bicycles out there, but they worked okay. They worked okay.
It's a bicycle. Doesn't take
Yeah, she
much,
was really
right?
sweet. She was really fun. She
Right.
was passionate, and it was like $20 tip at the end of the tour. So
Mhm.
I'd say that, that's what I would say to listeners is to please don't think that cycling at all has to be about the equipment or anything else.
Well, the exciting thing for me about it too, because I haven't done much cycling. I wrecked my knees playing football in high school, and they've just been, they've been operated on a bunch of times, and they're, I can walk and do that, but I can't run anymore. And I've avoided cycling just because it just seems it would be painful. But now that these e-bikes are available and you're using them on tours, that opens up cycling to a whole nother level of person, right? That's great.
Oh, absolutely incredible. Like for a while I was, people were saying, oh, even my guides were saying, oh, our customers are getting old. My customers are getting old. Well, first of all, I don't agree. It's as you're as young as you feel.
That's right. Age is a number, right? Exactly.
But it's true. I mean, I'd say, people in their later 60s, I mean, riding on these hills, particularly, let's say you come from Florida, you come from Massachusetts where it's flat, you're not used to going on hills. I mean, we've totally seen the average age of our customer go up from the bullseye used to be maybe 55. Now it's easily 60. And that means that we have plenty of people in their late 60s, 70s. And I tell you, even into the 80s. And they are, as long as your balance is good and your health is good, I think that the current generation of baby boomers plus is benefiting from, the health movement of the 70s, bicycle movement of the late 70s. And now this e-bike movement, we have really nice road e-bikes, and people when one was on the trip, she had a back issue and she would not have been able to go on this trip. And she said it to me if she could not use an e-bike. So absolutely, e-bikes are opening up people's eyes to alternative ways to travel, which, like I said, as much as we don't want to have the whole bike industry being taken over by e-bikes, it is opening up the door to a lot of people that didn't consider a bicycle trip. So for that, I'm very grateful. And e-bikes are only going to improve. They're going to get lighter. They're going to the batteries are hopefully going to be less. I mean, there is a recyclability about the e-bike that's concerning, but I mean, hopefully the batteries
they'll figure it out. They'll be solar at some point. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I was on one at a trade event a couple of years ago, and and my brother's got a couple, so we were on an e-bike tour. He lives over in Sacramento, and I was like, man, this is phenomenal. This is awesome. This changes the cycling world for guys like me.
Oh, everything. And this guy, like I said, this guy who came on the trip, he was probably 72 or 70. Who knows? He was in his 70s. But he was going to be riding a road bike his whole life. But he started going on other trips in which he was saying, hey, I'm no longer the young guy in the trip. Everybody else is, riding hard. And so guess what? Now his wife has an e-bike. He's sort of realizing maybe I'll slow down. So the e-bike was a benefit to her, but it was also a big benefit to him because he started seeing cycling through a different way. He started realizing, hey, it's not just about, cranking up the hills and talking about gear, and riding hard. It's all about now I can ride with my wife. Now I can smell the roses. And so, I think for two people, they were both transformed. And one of our bylines has always been transforming lives through active travel. And like I said, that's if we can hope for anything that happens on one of our trips is that people are transformed, in one way or another. And that's really our dream and our mission.
That's great. Is there anything else you'd like to say to our listeners or ask of our listeners?
I think, like I said, I mean, the transformation is important. I hope, hoping they'll try this form of travel, and, also realize from an environmental point of view, it's really important. So I think I really appreciate all of your questions and would love to, anybody want to give a call? I'm always available. I love to chat with you.
How can they follow up? What's the best way to reach you?
Sure. Even if they just want to say hello, or maybe they're getting into the business, and we're always looking for good talent, both in the office, marketing, sales talent, as well as guiding talent. So feel free to give a call. But my telephone number is 617-640-4837. That's my cell phone. And then our 800 number is 1-800-866-7314. And our company is www.ciclismoclassico.com. And those are our the three main ways. We have two Facebook pages. We have our business Facebook page, and we have a Club Ciclismo Facebook page. We are on Instagram as well as LinkedIn. So you can find us on all the social media. And drop a line. My email is Lauren@ciclismoclassico.com. So like I said, happy to talk to anybody in the business or any travelers that might want to just give it a try. I'm happy to chat with them.
Very cool. Well, we will link to all that stuff in the show notes so people can follow up. And I look forward to catching up with you somewhere, maybe on a trip. I need to come take a trip to Italy.
That would be great. I know.
That'd be a blast.
And your knees. Yeah, bicycling is about knee health for sure.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
One of the questions you asked me before about how I got into cycling. Well, I actually was an athlete in high school and had injured my knee. I had a ski injury. And at that point I said, wow, what am I going to do to stay active? And that's why I chose cycling. And absolutely, without a doubt, runners are turning into bikers. Keep your agility. Don't push hard. And I really think that if you're not pushing too hard on your pedals, your knees will do just fine.
Yeah, it'll be fine. Yeah, I did triathlons at a high school. My knees were just wrecked, and I just, for whatever reason, didn't gravitate to the bike. I just wasn't into it. I love to run, but the doctors always told me, you need to get on a bike. I just, haven't done it. My dad rode a bike till he was 80. So
make sure your seat. Make sure your seat.
Yeah, all the adjustments. Yeah, you got to do all that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and you'll strengthen all the muscles and tendons around your knee for sure. So I think
you're right.
Something for you to transition to.
I got to get on that.
Good. Excellent. Good.
Well, it's been great talking to you. I appreciate you coming on, and I look forward to meeting you soon.
Thank you, Rick. Thank you so much. Thank you, everybody. And I look forward to talking with you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Lauren.
Hey, before we wrap, I've got a special message for you. I know some of you have a podcast rolling around your brain or already have a podcast you'd like to polish up a bit. I'm excited to announce that I'm partnering with Tracy DeFord's Stephanie Euler and the Produce Your Podcast team to get it out of your head and into your followers' ears. Tracy and her team have helped me grow and monetize my show, and podcasters trust them because they deliver. Go to ricksaez.com/PYP to get all the details. Let's get your show created, produced, and on the air today. Go to ricksaez.com/PYP and get all the deets, and let me know if you have any questions.
Thank you for joining us on another episode of the Outdoor Biz Podcast. Be sure to visit our website, theoutdoorbizpodcast.com, where you'll find show notes with links to everything we talked about and more. Subscribe wherever you get your podcasts so you don't miss a single episode. And while you're at it, if you found value in this show, we'd appreciate a rating on iTunes. Or spread the word and tell a friend. That would really help us out too. Be sure to tune in every week. And thanks again for listening to the Outdoor Biz Podcast with Rick Saez.